Death Note, created by Tsugumi Oba and illustrated by Takeshi Obata, is a psychological thriller that explores the nature of justice, morality, and power. The series follows Light Yagami, a brilliant high school student who discovers a supernatural notebook that allows him to kill anyone by writing their name while picturing their face. What begins as Light's attempt to rid the world of criminals gradually transforms into a dangerous pursuit of absolute power, revealing how easily justice can become corruption. We kick things off within the mind of Light, observing those around him. He shows a level of intelligence that foreshadows the storyline as a whole. As we see him overseeing the students in his class, he's thinking about how trivial their minds work. Which brings us into our very first dynamic plot point. A famous quote by Eleanor Roosevelt states, "Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people." In an environment where teenagers are often discussing events such as the next big party, or gathering, or conflicts between one another, Light is often thinking critically, problem-solving and brainstorming. Although it's a strength, it shows throughout the series on how it can also be overbearing. In this moment he looks down on his peers, before being called to read aloud to the class. As an honor roll student, Light is always used for demonstration purposes on how things need to be executed. Finishing classes for the day, Light ponders on his boredom and how he's felt unfulfilled as of late. The next day we see Light in class looking outside the window. He catches a glimpse of something falling down from the sky, shocked. He then proceeds after class lets out, to confront his discovery. Laying eyes on the Death Note. At first, Light is taking this as a comical joke. After reading some of its content, he lays the book down back where it was. We then see Light at home with the Death Note, implying curiosity overcame him. He studies the credentials of the Death Note, coming to the conclusion that it's some kind of joke. However, Light remains curious. He puts the rules of the book to the test by putting it to action. As stated, any name placed in the notebook will succumb to death. Turning on the news, Light looks to test the abilities of the notebook on a criminal who was recently identified. This is interesting because Light tries justifying his reasoning of using the Death Note, although it's morally incorrect to utilize it for any reason. The criminal that's been identified is holding women and children hostage. This leads to Light writing the name of the man into the notebook. Light relays the rules and the time the death should take effect. Shrugging off the possibility, the designated time passes and the criminal dies of a sudden heart attack. In disbelief, for obvious reasons, Light believes this to be coincidental, not fully convinced. Light conducts another experiment, this time with more detailed measurements of the next criminal he wants to place in the Death Note. Finding men who are assaulting a woman in front of his eyes, he begins writing the details and the names of the men he's observing. The details written plays out exactly how he described. This confirms Light's former suspicion, and becomes the start of his new identity. After making it home, he enters his room, and begins to come to a gradual realization. Rather in an evil sense, but is quickly interrupted by Ryuk, a Shinigami who is the proper owner of the Death Note. This startles Light at first, but they quickly get acquainted on the behalf of Light already using the Death Note. Ryuk states he's not here to stop Light, however. Because Light has used the Death Note, his fate is sealed. Light believes this power bestowed upon him is from God, while Ryuk explains this is a mere coincidence. Acting as the comic relief, the dynamic between these two characters becomes a brilliant complex the author added to the story. Not only in that light, no pun intended, but also adding depth. This sets the stage for Light's plan, bringing justice to criminals and individuals who do wrong. Now, to my last dynamic point of the story, the idea of adding a neutral character that is creepy, yet also acts as the comic relief works as an antiphrase. This is also interesting because Ryuk also responds as if he's a part of the audience. He mentions he's bound to Light until his passing, however the way the author introduces these notions is exceptional. Now that the stage is set, Light reveals his true colors. Earlier I stated how Light observed his classmates and thought less of them, based on their state of mind. He fails to realize his wrongs, constantly looking down on others. He's developed this God complex, which he can now take full advantage of, while using the notebook. Light begins his reign by killing off criminals based on his deduction that this will decrease crime rate, and allow him to move up the hierarchy as opportunities presents itself. Do you think Light will be successful? Well, if you haven't, check out the entire series of Death Note. It's a psychological thriller that's just as interesting as any action or battle manga. Subscribe for more breakdowns and new perspectives.